That's really one of the most important shots in the John Wick franchise. Man, there's so many great shots in the first John Wick. I think one that's the most impactful is Keanu pulling the dog out of the dog carrier. It's sort of the emotional fuel for the entire series. It represents Helen, his wife, and his humanity, and that they're gonna not let him retain his humanity when the dog obviously is killed. And I think that was also such a provocative thing to do in a film. We were told so many times, like by the studio and by, and a lot of like film friends are like, you can't kill a dog. You can't kill a dog. It's like, it'll curse the movie. And I think we really knew in our heart of hearts, like it was the emotional fuel we needed for this character and sort of like, and what we wanted to do on the other side of it. So I think that's really one of the most important shots in the John Wick franchise, in my opinion. My favorite shot in Atomic Blonde is made up of a multitude of shots. It's the stairwell fight, it's the oneer, and it's sort of, it's like an 8-minute oneer with Charlize and the stunt team, in this fight. Feels uncut, but it's been stitched together by multiple takes. What was great about that, it was like a real sort of a science experiment. Like Kelly, my producer and my wife, that was a big movie for us because it was our first time we were really collaborating as creatives together. And she's like, we need to do something bold. We need to do something very original. It's just a small budget movie. You've been thinking about this idea of like a oneer, an action oneer, kind of inspired by Children of Men. But instead, the protagonist in Children of Men is walking through the chaos. It's like, can I have the protagonist be the chaos? One of the reasons that came to me is I'd worked with Roger Deakins. I was a second unit director on In Time, and I had a conversation with him, and he's like, I like to shoot things where I never leave the character. I don't want to leave the character. I just want to be with the character. That's why I'm always on a 35 here, close in. I want it to feel like you're with the character. And so that always stuck with me. And really, I think that's part of the reason why it's so compelling. Like, you sit with this character for 7 minutes when she goes through the gauntlet of assassins, and doesn't feel like film anymore because you're not cutting and you're not breaking this, using this convention that your mind knows. So the long and short of it, that became now something that people like to try and do. And I think the reason it works so well in Atomic Blonde, it was a character move. I think it was the time in the movie where she was at her low point, and it allowed the audience to really feel it dramatically. Like, we have plenty of fights in that film that are cut up and are more shot in more conventional, fun styles. But when it got serious, we didn't cut. And if you realize there's no music in that sequence, it's all sound design. And so it was done for a real distinct story purpose, and it works incredibly well, and I'm really proud of that scene. So I've had to pick one shot. I mean, there's so many great shots. It could be Cable traveling back in time, or it could be Deadpool going back to the afterlife and seeing his wife. But I think my favorite shot in Deadpool is the slow-mo bullet hit, and when he dives and saves Fire Fist, and we don't know that there's actually the coin in his pocket. We think he's dead. And I think it's like setting up the expectation for the audience in a really fun way, in a super melodramatic way for a comic book movie. It was really fun.
The sun will come out tomorrow.
What's great about the things we got to do in Deadpool, i.e. that shot, Deadpool, as subversive as it is some of the most emotional, it's one of the most emotional characters in that whole universe, really, of Marvel. Like, I think you really feel for him. That moral of that story was always one act of kindness can change the future. And so his act of sacrifice was gonna hopefully change Fire Fist from not being the awful person he was. So it's a really important moment in that film. Hobbs and Shaw, I'm also gonna pick a sequence, which is the opening sequence, which is the split screen. This movie is essentially The Odd Couple, right? And I wanted to establish these characters in their daily life and see just how much alike they are, but just see how different they are with some nonverbal storytelling. Jason and Dwayne are such great actors. They don't need dialogue to evoke things. And so it was really fun to, and comedic, but also dramatic at times. Like, that was just a fun way to set up the characters. And again, I try to approach all of the scenes that I do and the shots that I do, whether they're stylized, there's a purpose for them in terms of building these iconic characters. Again, I have so many fun moments that I remember, but I think that the one that crystallizes Ladybug's journey is sort of the impossible train crash at the end of the film. And the fact that he could survive this train crash, and we're seeing it in slow motion as all this thing is flying around him, and he's traveling through the train in this long sort of panning shot, and actually hits the Momomon character, which is the thing that saves him from a train crash. It's like implausible, but also perfect in tone for the story we're telling about fate. It's one of my favorite shots in the movie, and it's something that came together really late. Like, we were trying to figure out how to do it. I went kind of old school with it. We put Brad on a rig, and it's really just sort of like a pan where he's sitting in the chair, and then we're up against a green screen, and we're moving the camera around him, and we're creating. I knew I would have to build the rest of the world digitally, and we had already built a model of the train for other purposes. It was something that actually really came together quickly and last minute, which sometimes your best ideas do. My favorite shot in The Fall Guy, again, is a real shot. Now, it's not a oneer. It is a oneer. Whereas like Atomic Blonde was not a oneer. But that opening scene where he's in the trailer with Jodie and we're establishing their relationship, and he walks out and we're on set with the stuntman, and you're kind of feeling like a day in the life of Colt Seavers.
I'm not the hero, I'm just the double. Not today, you're not.
I think it really works well in the sense that it sucks you into the story. You know, you're seeing a guy at work. The only thing that's different about him is that he's got to go up an elevator, 10 stories or whatever it is, 15 stories, and then, jump off the building. But everything else is just a day at the office. That is not unlike any day on set. The crew comes up to you, you're talking, you're chit-chatting. And then to have it arrive on, at the top and actually have to go right into the stunt was a pretty daunting feat for Ryan and for anybody. Like, I mean, for him to do it in one shot was pretty compelling, yeah. Because I'm an action guy, and maybe this is too expected, but I think the old boy hallway sequence is a great one to pick. It's just an inspiring piece of choreography and a bold choice to just stay in this sort of tableau and like watch this sort of brutal action take place. And like, again, the reason it's so impactful is it's like this defining moment for this character's escape. And like, you're rooting for him so much at that moment. But there's so many other things going on. The graphic sensibility of it, the use of violence that Chan-wook Park does like so well. Yeah, I don't know. That's probably one of my favorite shots. It'd be hard to pick.
For more directors picking some favourite shots from their movies, check out our videos with Denis Villeneuve and Ridley Scott.